Have you seen the guys, the manly hair on the faces, season on the Amazing Race? Two best friends, Joel and Garrett, chasing down that $1 million carrot. Where will you go? How far will you go? If you wanna know, watch the next episode. Two pals balling around, span the globe, representing their home in Idaho. Facial hair gods, two dad bods, made it to the final, going to the final. Every girl's hall pass will be Joel and Garrett from now on.
Do you ever realize that when I talk, it's just like a mush of words?
Mm-hmm.
It's not.
It's your MO. Welcome to our leg 12 final. Our final leg.
I didn't even know we started. How
it's going. Welcome to our recap of the final leg of the Amazing Race, the season finale.
Hey, why don't you put your chair down an inch? I see what you're doing.
Always with the chair height. Look, you're taller than me by like 3 inches in real life.
And I've gotten used to it.
So can I just have this?
No, I've gotten used to it. I just feel awkward now when you're taller than me.
All right, we're the same height now. You're my same height. That is cool. All right, so I just wanted to show this really quick.
That's cool.
Maybe you won't know it. Oh, maybe you won't see it very well, and I don't care because I just want you to know what it is. And it's the picture of the Amazing Race cast.
You're making people seasick. Stop.
I don't want anyone to take a screen grab of it and recreate it. This is real. And I'm so happy. It's one of my prized possessions right now to have the signatures of the cast from our season. This, honestly, you can't see all the certificates in this room that I have. I have tons of them because I'm so important. But this is going to replace, like, my master's degree or something. I just had to get that in there. It's going to replace it.
Let's pull out the Guinness World Record and show them how many times.
I got a whole wall of Guinness World Record. I got all these professional designations and everything. But and honestly, this means more to me than any of that crap. So, and I'm going to say something cheesy and real. Okay, it's both cheesy and very real. We got $1 million worth of friendships. So we are the winners. Let's get down to business. Enough chit chat.
Let's get down to business.
You can't say a line from a movie or a commercial or a song without this guy singing
Especially
it.
a song.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So we arrive in Seattle, but want to know something?
Ooh,
you want to know a little secret?
Little secret here.
A little secret behind the scenes. We should have arrived in Seattle at sunrise. Instead, we arrived at sunset.
I saw a comment out there that said, "This was an amazing leg. I just wish that they would have chosen to schedule it so that they arrived at the mat at sunset." Isn't it interesting?
At the mat at sunset.
Yeah.
Well, that may have happened if things would have happened if they should have, because we arrived in Seattle as the sun was setting. And you may have noticed the light when we were on the Space Needle. We went directly from the airport to the Space Needle, and the sun was setting. It was actually a beautiful scene, but it should have been a sunrise because the flight that all 3 teams booked was canceled by the airline.
I believe it was the only flight. Yeah, in fact.
No, there was another one that we could have. No, there wasn't because we all got the next flight, which was like 15 hours later.
Yeah.
Or 18 hours.
Yeah, so the only flight at the time leaving from Dublin to Seattle was canceled.
Yes, so crew and production was already there. I think most of the time a huge contingent of the show travels well before the racers go, and they set up the next stuff. So while we were doing a Sunset Seattle scramble, the production was doing an actual scramble, trying to get everything arranged. So, anyways, we jump in the car, and it says...
it didn't say anything.
Well, there was a Space Needle statuette on our dash, and it had the word valet. And the valet was like printed on it in 3D or whatever, so it wasn't like someone added it with a marker. That was the plan all along, was for us to valet park there. Remember this little guy? Yeah, that's what we should do with that thing. But if it was still in my hand, I would show you that while we were in the Dublin airport waiting for the 18-hour flight, or waiting 18 hours for the next flight, we did a bunch of research and we hand drew a ton of maps between all of the locations in Seattle. So we have a map in that booklet that we did use that takes us from the airport to the Space Needle. Because every contingency that we could think of, we used someone's phone and we drew out that map.
We didn't know where we'd be going once we got there at the time, but we just thought of the biggest landmarks in Seattle. You know, Pike's Market, the Space Needle,
the gun wall,
the stadium,
the troll under the bridge. Little known fact, I lived an hour from Seattle for about 5 years. Recently, we just moved back to Idaho, my homeland, about 2 years ago. Almost 2 years ago. But for 5 years I lived an hour from Seattle and I avoided it. I hated Seattle for the most part. We went for Mariners games. We'd go to the airport, but that's not even in Seattle. So, back to the topic at hand. We find out we're going to the Space Needle, and we had perfect directions from the airport. We got there no problem. Apparently the other teams used their time wisely too, because we all arrived at the Space Needle within a minute. Within 30 seconds, really.
Yeah.
Corey and Rob were first. John and Greg and us arrived at the same time. It was a foot race to the box. John and Greg got number 2.
Who wins the foot race between
us and John and Greg? I think that's apparent who wins that foot race. So
too bad there wasn't a bridge we could have sent him across right before we got there.
I know. And so we get up to the top of the Space Needle. Never in my life did I imagine I would do something like walking atop the Space Needle. We were speculating whether we might bungee jump off of it. Which
thanks.
I kind of wish we had. That would have been more epic. No, what we did was cool. No one gets to walk around the top of the Space Needle. That's not something you can pay to do.
Us and the maintenance guy.
After we descended from the top of the Space Needle was the Chihuly Glass Museum, where we had to find the guy with the red and yellow tie. We did take one slight wrong turn, but that didn't take us more than a minute.
We took the wrong sidewalk, but it wasn't maybe 20 or 30 feet, and then we were like, wait a minute.
Yeah, we mostly went directly to the guy in the red and yellow tie, got the clue, and now we knew the scramble was on.
And we were super excited when we came out of there, and Greg and John and Corey and Rob were both still at their car looking at their maps trying to figure out where they're going next.
Let's talk about those maps. You may have noticed that all 3 teams had the same map in the show. I noticed that. Was that provided by the show? No, it was not. It was provided by our cameraman.
He had it in his pocket the whole time.
No, he didn't. But this is what happened, because I think it's worth mentioning. When we were in Dublin in the airport, we found a travel store. We saw Corey, Rob, and John and Greg changing money, and they were like off to the side, way doing their own thing. We went in the travel store. We found a Seattle travel book. We were like super sneaky about it. We bought the travel book.
It had a map inside of it.
A pull-out map
of downtown Seattle, which is what we thought would be necessary or we might need.
There were also 2 extra copies of that book, and a smart team would have hidden them. So the 2 extra copies obviously remained on the shelf, right where they went, alphabetically arranged and everything. As we're buying the book, our camera operator, bless his heart, stood in the opening of the store and was like, looking at us.
What are you guys doing in there?
What are you guys doing? And John and Greg are like, huh? So of course they all come running in to see they would have bought them anyway. It doesn't matter, because here's the thing. I'm being facetious about this. Yes, our cameraman was very obvious. But I was just like, dude, would you get out of the entrance of the store and stop doing, there's Joel and Garrett, there's John and Greg. Wonder if John and Greg will see what Joel and Garrett are doing. It was a little bit obvious, and I just wanted to go like, dude, really? So
this recap's out of control.
I'm sorry.
I apologize.
This isn't our usual decorum. Let's we're professionals.
You have to take into account we just lost $1 million.
So we're in extra good spirits today. Oh, Shatner.
You got that in.
I forgot. Dude, you don't know how many times I said holy Shatner?
He says it all the time.
It's one of my favorite
I was happy that it finally got in.
It finally got in there when I was on the Space Needle. But All right, I do believe, and the only reason I'm even telling this story is because I do believe that these other teams are not stupid,
No.
and they would have eventually checked the travel store. We were just the first one to think of it.
And they probably would have hidden the other 2 books also.
Yeah, I know. They probably would have. So, okay. We're doing the scramble. We got 3 options. 2 of the 3 are on the map. Glass and Grunge are on the map. Grab is not because it was a little further south than the map of downtown Seattle showed. We made the decision correctly, I think, to go just closest to furthest because we would eliminate backtracking possibly depending on where we're going from there.
Yeah, you just don't know where you're going to go from there. That's Corey and Rob. I totally understand what they were doing, starting at the bottom.
True.
Because they might have made a good choice if they got to the top and found out that it's just down the street from the top.
Yes.
So you never
It's
know
a
where to
crapshoot,
go.
and we played the odds. We found our way to glass without too much problem. I do know that at one point we were in an intersection in the middle of downtown Seattle when I realized I'm going the wrong way. And Smythe's telling me we're going the wrong way, and I did a backwards U-turn.
I don't know what he was doing.
In the middle of the intersection, it was a green light. There were no other cars there, fortunately. And I look up and like the producer car that's following us is like, what the?
They didn't know what we were doing.
But yeah, it was a slightly unorthodox traffic maneuver.
Here's how it happened. We needed to get turned around, and so he took a left turn and then realized he was turning onto a one-way street.
Oh, that's right.
And so then he had to throw it into reverse and back up.
In the middle of the intersection, I did like a.
I can't even remember. It was like
like
backing up wasn't
turning
working,
this
so we
way,
had
and
to
then-
turn a little bit more.
It was like a 3-point turn.
It was a mess.
Oh man, luckily it was not. Even though it was downtown, there were no other cars in sight.
Yeah.
Luckily, we get to the glass blowing place, and guess what? Joel's done glass blowing before.
Winner.
What? Joel's done glass blowing? Yeah. I don't know if it helped, but 10 years ago, my wife and I, in Seaside, Oregon, or Lincoln City, Oregon, really can't remember which one, but we did glass blowing. We made a float. We made this exact thing, my wife and I.
I seem to remember, though, in that moment that you said, like, after we attempted it and failed it a couple times, I thought you said, well, really, my wife did the glass blowing.
I don't know. My memory, you know how after a certain amount of time you remember things the way you want to? I think we did it together, but now that you said that, I think she did it with her friend and I was just watching. Maybe
But
that's...
in his mind, he made the best glass float you've ever seen.
Yeah. I don't know now. I think, it's a toss-up. Maybe I did it with my wife, maybe she did it with her friend and I paid for it.
Comment down below if you think he did it.
Yeah, I think it actually was Lila and Wendy that did it and not me now that we're talking. Oh, well. Time for seriousness. We're going to stop laughing.
Okay,
We're going to get it together. From now on, we're reputable. So we finished the glass blow. Stop it! I was trying. We got out of there. We thought that John and Greg were like 60 seconds behind us. We learned when we watched it that
we didn't know how much
they took another 10 minutes ish.
They kept snapping a little piece of the glass off.
Yeah, we weren't there for any of that part. We were there when their ball was too small. I do remember that the first float was too small.
We saw it too, and
We were
I
like-
thought,
we were
oh
like-
man, they already got it done.
No, I was thinking, I don't think that's too small. I remember.
I thought it looked huge.
Oh well, I think that was the first one that popped. They had a big one that popped. Then they had a small one, and then we were out of there. And it turned out they had a couple more that broke that we didn't know about. So we get to the show box for Grunge, and we set up their equipment.
And
We
luckily,
struggled.
not only has he done glass blowing, but he's also set up a stage for Weezer.
Yeah, I have. Look it's my Weezer roadie jacket that I referenced in the episode.
Ooh, you look just like Buddy Holly.
Oh, and you're Mary Tyler Moore. So, no, I've never set up equipment for a band before, but Weezer's one of my favorite bands, if not my very favorite band. And this was a gift from my wife about over 15 years ago. And I cherish this. I don't wear it very often even because I like it and I don't want it to get messed up. But this was what the roadie crew wore on a certain tour. So we struggled finding the components in the amplifier or the speaker.
We don't even know what it was called.
Yeah. but we struggled finding that component and the cord, the power cords. The judge who judged this task didn't get enough credit or airtime for how good he was. He was playing the role of the pencils down guy in the Russia leg like 10 years ago. One of the most epic judges ever. If you don't know the reference, sorry, but he was like a meanie, but it was a role he was playing. And so is this judge. And he would say things like, "Are you done wasting my time yet?" when we'd ask for a check.
Don't call for another check until you have it correct.
Yeah, and you did hear him say you should give that roadie jacket back to Weezer.
Yeah.
But he was hilarious. I loved how well he played the role of the jerk judge. But in real life, he was probably a really cool dude. Also, I didn't know that Smokey Bright was a real band. I mean, yes, we didn't even know they were going to come out and play music, first of all.
Yeah.
That was a surprise to us.
Surprise.
When we did the check and he said, "Sound check, Smokey Brights, take the stage," or whatever, and they come out, we were like, "What?"
We were like, oh, this is a real thing here.
They started playing. I kind of feel bad because I think we got their instruments all out of tune while we were banging them around and stuff. And plus, they were all sitting outside in the cold or warm or whatever. But just today, I researched the Smokey Brights. They are a real band in the Seattle scene. They've actually been receiving a lot of awards lately. I looked them up on Spotify, and the song that they played for us is called "Fancy Ketchup" by Smokey Brights. Look it up. It's a great song. It's a great tune. Not a sponsor, but
and as you know, my dancing skills are just crazy good. So you could see me jamming out to them when I was doing this.
Yeah. Well, they were cool. I really actually like. I actually played Smokey Bright's playlist today for like 15 songs, and I liked almost all the songs. So, all right. So we got our clue. John and Greg and Corey and Rob, turns out, struggled just as much as us or more on finding the hidden components and power chords, which was nice to see because I pictured them just finding it immediately, be like, "Oh, of course I know how to do this."
You know, anytime you see Greg and John struggling, it's like, okay, maybe they're not perfect.
You see? They're not machines, they're men! So yeah, we got our clue. We have one piece of the puzzle left, or the scramble, I mean, and it is grab. And we had settled on thinking that we were taking fish out of there was going to be one of those fish throwing things like they do at Pike's Place. But we get there and it has nothing to do with fish, it is trapeze. And the odd thing is, I don't remember feeling intimidated by it. I think I was running off adrenaline and hope at this point.
Yeah, I remember feeling intimidated, but at the same time, I knew at this point that we had the lead because both teams were at that showbox. Mm-hmm. And we knew that at that point, we figured Corey and Rob must have done the trapeze already.
Yep. And when we pulled the number, we saw that we were number 2.
Yeah. So we, at this point, we know we're in the lead.
Yeah.
And so, even though I was feeling a little intimidated, it's the whole thing that we've had the whole time, you know? We're going to figure it out.
Yeah. We knew we could figure it out. It was just a matter of having the right attitude and putting in the effort. So we did that. It took us each 3 tries or 4? I think it took us each 3.
Yeah.
It is unnatural, if you've not done it before, to hang high above the ground, even though you know there's a net. It's unnatural to hang above the ground, then put your feet up, or put your knees up and hang upside down, and then to let go and hope you're caught. That's not a thing that my body, or I don't think your body, wanted to do.
Well, in the hope that the guy that's about to catch me can carry this much weight.
Yeah, turns out the guy was a great catcher, and he was pretty strong.
Yeah.
But everyone had to attempt it through the method of putting your feet through your hands at first, and if you couldn't do it on your first try, then they told you there's actually a way easier method, which is put your feet around your hands. And if you pay attention, you'll notice everyone tries the harder way first, and then they're like, "Oh, there's an easier way."
And I was very impressed with Corey. Corey did it first try with the hands on the outside, legs between.
That's right.
Yep.
Didn't John?
John also.
Yeah. So
very
kudos
impressive
to them.
that those guys got that on that first try.
Yep. Because it is not easy
No.
to do it that way. It's much easier to do the wraparound leg thing. So we knocked it out on 3 tries each. In fact, I think the hardest part of that, maybe this isn't true, but I remember the 3rd time I climbed that ladder. It's a wiggly ladder, and the 3rd time I was climbing up, but I was getting tired. I was like, this isn't that easy. So
I wasn't tired, but I have sensitive feet. It was hurting
this guy with his feet.
It was hurting my feet. There was just a little tiny pole that you're stepping on.
Yeah, the rungs were not wide.
It was hurting my feet.
He's a big time baby about his feet sensitivity. Oh my gosh. Can I get a new partner? so we get our last piece of our airplane. We're in the home stretch. We're going to the memory challenge that we knew was coming, but good news, that notebook that's been thrown across the room, it had...
We studied it like
We studied
crazy.
the Shatner out of that thing. We quizzed each other nightly at the hotel. We didn't waste our time sitting around watching Animal Planet. We were reading that notebook.
We wasted a little bit of time watching Animal Planet.
Okay, yes, we did. And I learned a lot about bears and whales and elephants.
Honeybees in Slovenia.
Right? But, no, we studied that book a lot. Here's the dealio. You don't know what you're going to be quizzed about. If you've seen the show, there is always a memory quiz, but it's never the same, and it's never about the same thing. Could have been about flags. It could have been about the people at the mat that welcome us. It
What
could have
color
been about,
dress she was wearing and whatever leg.
which we had that memorized in case they'd asked.
I thought it could have been a question about the Witten coins and what they looked like, so we drew a picture of that.
Yeah, there's so much. That notebook is jam-packed with details, and we studied the crap out of it. And I think this is worth pointing out. If I may go retrieve this that you so callously threw across the room. Page 1, if I may quote. First leg, very top of the page. Here's what I wrote. Start, Hollywood, roadblock, first clue. Who wants to be on top of it all? It's all there. No, get your hand off of this.
It needs to go.
He wants to throw it again so bad. All right.
Is that what it was, though? Or Who Wants to Be Above It All? I think it's Who Wants to Be Above It All.
Oh, maybe that's why.
We didn't even write it down right.
Maybe that's why.
There's the problem.
But if I would have thumbed through to the second Slovenia leg, you would have seen Who Wants a Bird's Eye View.
Yes, we did have that
We
written
wrote
down.
them all down. We studied them all. You were not allowed to use any form of notes in the challenge. And it's time for me to own the fact that I corrected Smythe at the start because he said, and they were sure to show you this, of course. Thank you, show.
Well, it was kind of important.
Yeah, it was pretty pivotal to the whole outcome of the race. Thank you very much. Smythe had it right. He said that the glider was Who Wants a Bird's Eye View. And I said, no, that was the tightrope I did. First leg, Biltmore Hotel. And he's like, oh, yeah. And so I did it.
When I first asked, though, I thought I remembered the bird's eye view being the airplane.
Uh-huh.
When you said, no, it was the tightrope, I didn't question it.
The best
I
thing
wasn't confident in the bird's eye view being the glider plane.
The best thing that could have happened in that moment would be for Smythe to just punch me square in the nose, knock me cold, and complete the challenge on his own. But he chose to be a good teammate. We finished the challenge, we thought. John and Greg arrived when we had just a few minutes. We only had a few details left to put up. The paddles, by the way, were an important component of this as well.
You didn't see a lot of the paddles.
The paddles said the name of a country and then had a picture from that, and they were in two pieces. You had to fit them together, so the paddles were like a puzzle.
It was a picture of the pit stop.
Yeah.
So you had to find which pit stop went with which country for which
leg, and then line those up. Of course, we had all of those correct. It was just the two kayaks that I had transposed in my mind because they had a very similar name.
But we didn't know that we had everything else correct.
True.
And so that's why we were standing there for so long going through it, trying to figure out what the mistake was.
We think we spent about 20 minutes from the first check till the time we had it right. Not sure, but that's our best guess. 5 minutes after our first check, no, that's not true. It was about 15 minutes after our first check. John and Greg got it right. We could hear Greg yell, "Let's go!" which was like a knife in my heart. Because I knew they had it right and they were out of there. It took us roughly 5 more minutes before we found our error, fixed our kayaks, got our clue. Meanwhile, Corey and Rob showed up at about the time we were getting our check and getting it right. Is that true?
Yeah, I think they were just getting started as we got our clue.
They, by the way, knocked that kayak challenge, I think, out faster than any team. I think they were faster than us, obviously, but I think they were faster than John and Greg. They got it right on their first try also. So we get our last clue. It's Marymore Park in Redmond, Washington. There was a Jack in the Box very close to
at this point, it's like midnight, maybe 1 in the morning.
Yeah.
And so there wasn't a lot of traffic on the road. There wasn't people out. And we see this Jack in the Box that has a 24-hour drive-through.
And there's cars in it.
And there was cars there.
So we went to the car in the drive-through. Your food be darned. We're worried about our $1 million. And the people in the line behind you, screw them. They want their food too. They can wait.
Lucky for us, the people in the drive-thru we talked to, they knew the show. And they were like,
guys,
oh my gosh, this is the Amazing Race.
One of the guys was like, oh, Amazing Race, it's the Amazing Race, look at the fanny pack. And I was like, freak out later, give me your phone now. You'll be on TV if you just give me your phone right now. And he's like, oh yeah. And he gave me his phone. I find Marymore Park, we write down directions pretty quickly, give his phone back, thanks guys, enjoy your Big Mac, hey, can I have some fries? And no, I didn't say that. But then we're off. We made great time to Marymore Park.
Yeah,
direct
I mean, just like any time, there was moments where we were driving for so long that we thought, did we miss a turn?
It's about a 20-minute drive.
But we didn't have any issues.
We drove directly there.
Yeah, we found it right away.
When we arrive at Marymore Park, we dared to dream that we had overtaken John and Greg.
And I'm curious, because John and Greg did say that they saw a car.
Yeah.
There weren't a lot of cars driving around at the time.
There were no cars moving.
And so I wonder if legitimately they saw us on the road getting close to pulling into the parking lot as they were parking.
If you look at the map...
Potentially, maybe we really were right behind them. I don't know for sure.
The way it would have worked, and the timing, we know we were there 2 minutes behind them. I think they definitely saw us pulling into the park, making our way to the parking lot as they were exiting their vehicle to go to the mat. And if I would have known that, I would have driven straight to the finish line. I would have gone through the bushes
and jump out of the car onto the mat.
Dude, I would have driven the car onto the mat. I would have driven right through all the team's classes.
Excuse us.
Here we go, grass flying
out of towners.
If only I'd known that it was that close. And then they would have we'd be in jail because we probably would have taken.
You have been penalized.
A few of our
30 years to life
would be hurt. So I guess I'm glad. But anyways, it really was 2 minutes. According to everyone that was there, they told us that there was only 2 minutes between John and Greg running in and us running in. And so that means that in the show, when you see Phil interviewing John and Greg before it showed us arriving, that was actually after we arrived. They just did a tight shot because Phil didn't even have time to ask the questions of John and Greg. They were celebrating, they were cheering, and then here we are. So the age-old question, is it better to lose by 1 basket or to get blown out by 50 points in a game? Because that's what we don't have the choice. We lost by 1 basket. But I guess I think it's better. It's nice to be able to say that objectively one of the best teams that's ever been in the Amazing Race only beat us by 2 minutes. Because John and Greg are without a doubt that.
Yeah.
Top 5, if not top 3 best teams ever to play.
We'll just call them the best team to ever play because then we're right behind the best team to ever play.
Okay. All right. I think we have an accord. We're in agreement on that.
Everyone agrees.
In Amazing Race history, if you beat 11 teams, you won. We beat 11 teams. We got 2nd place. These are the things I'm trying to focus on right now to keep myself from crying myself to sleep every night. There are 11 other teams that would kill for 2nd place. If we were on the mat in Germany and when we thought we were out and Phil said, you're still in and you're going to make 2nd place, we would have pooped our pants with joy at that moment.
I don't know why he always is pooping his pants with joy, but we would have been excited for sure.
Yeah. There's a perspective that you got to keep in mind. And maybe, you know what, maybe we'll make a separate video where we just talk about our feelings.
Our feelings.
Because we have feelings.
We do have feelings.
I think that it probably deserves its own video because we would be here another hour and this one's going long already.
I'm going to share one feeling.
Please.
After we got home, when the whole thing was over with, my son needed new running shoes, so I took him to a sporting goods store. Walking through the aisles, looking for the shoes, I walked past a wall of kayaks. And I didn't even think about the connection, but I immediately felt this rage inside of me where I wanted to grab those kayaks and tear them off the wall. And then
you know what I'm picturing?
And then I realized, oh yeah, that actually makes sense.
It's the scene from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure where Genghis Khan destroys the sporting goods store. That would be Smythe with those kayaks at this sporting goods store. All right, so we've done tributes to every team as we've gone along. Every team that's been eliminated. Well, there are no more eliminated teams. But I do want to talk about Corey and Rob and John and Greg because they definitely need to be talked about. Let's do it. John and Greg, Corey and Rob. You know, I keep finding myself referring to them as our teammates instead of our opponents because it feels like they were our teammates. And not just them, but all of them in the whole show. But I don't know. These are such fierce competitors and such awesome friends.
Such good people.
I mean, I will consider these guys friends for the rest of my life because they're such good doggone people. And even though I'm not just going to have you talk about Corey and Rob, we talk about John and Greg. Let's just talk about all of them. So, but Corey and Rob first. What you see is what you get with Corey and Rob. They are such genuine, awesome people. I didn't know how good camera presence Rob had until I started watching the show.
So good.
He's got and Rob is good at everything in the sense that he can take any challenge and just ace it.
Yeah,
he doesn't have to
in fact, Corey calls him Roadblock Rob.
Yeah,
because he's that good at roadblocks.
Yes, and he. I mean, I want to be more like Rob in many ways, in his attitude and his humor, and the way that he approaches challenges.
And his relationship with his kids.
Yeah, his fathering skills.
I mean, I even told him when we last saw him. I even told him.
You okay there? You need a tissue?
I want to have that same kind of relationship with my kids. It's just such an amazing relationship. Just watching them together is just so heartwarming.
Rob is a superhero in every sense of the word. And I was talking to Corey the other night when we were all together at the finale. And I was like, is there anything your dad's not good at? And he gave it some serious thought for a second. He's like, I guess hearing. That's the only thing that Rob's not good at. But Rob is just incredibly, an incredible example in every way. A person who I genuinely wish that I could be more like. And then you have Corey.
Yeah, and Corey, dude.
America's heartthrob.
This guy. Corey is... I'm not even going to talk about his attractiveness, you know.
I mean, that just goes without saying. It's so obvious.
But Corey is the nicest guy you'll ever meet. He does not want to hurt anybody's feelings. He doesn't want to offend anybody. He just cares about people so much.
How does it go? He doesn't have an evil bone in his body. He doesn't even have a bone that's not great in his body. All of his bones are exquisite bones.
And they're fast bones too.
Oh yeah, that guy can run. I think we can make a whole video about these guys. I think we can talk about how great they all are. And maybe we will. They deserve it. They certainly deserve it. But Corey, what a dude. He's got so much ahead of him. I just can't wait to see. You know what I can't do? I can't wait to vote for him for president. Because he's
going to run?
No, he's not. I don't know. He never talked about politics. But if he wanted to run for president this coming cycle, he could. And he'd have my vote.
I can't wait to see him on the challenge.
Oh, yeah. Let's see him and Annalie on the challenge. Oof, maybe Jeremy, Liam. I don't know. So, anyways, John and Greg, though, what fierce competitors and what kind people they are. They manage to be the best at everything and still be humble and gracious while they do it.
I don't know if you've ever had the chance to win $1 million and then have somebody jump in right before you and take that $1 million, and then and then you just have this thought that I gotta find a reason to hate these guys. There's no reason to hate these guys.
It would be convenient if we could be like, oh yeah, and then there's John and Greg. And the only thing that we can find to not like about them is that they beat us.
That they dominate.
Which is not something not to like about somebody.
They're awesome.
They were cool the entire time. They were kind with our cast, everybody. Everyone looked up to them. Everybody wishes they could be more like John and Greg.
At the watch party, we had a chance to talk to them, and I remember specifically at one point, Greg pulled me aside, and he was like, "Hey, how you feeling? You know, are you okay with everything that's gone on?" And
what a good
and he was concerned about our feelings because he knew that we were that close and didn't get it.
Yeah.
And all he cared about was, "Are you guys doing okay? You know,
Yep.
Is there anything I can do for you?" And I was like, "Yeah, give me $500,000." No, I didn't say that. But seriously, he was just so kind and, gave us each a big hug. And
such a genuine
these guys are just such good people. And we got to meet their family, too. Their parents and everything.
John and
the whole family is just amazing.
And we also got to meet Corey and Rob's family, too. Corey's mother, Rob's wife, was there. His brother, Kellen, was there. Great family, great people all around.
So nice, yeah.
When you see people's families, it's pretty easy to tell how they got so awesome. And that's the case with Greg, John, Corey, Rob. I can't say enough about how lucky we are to have met them, to become their friends, and to compete alongside them.
And the great thing is how everyone leading up to this final episode was talking about how it's hard to not like any team that's in the finals. Like everybody throughout the race was just so nice to each other and, you know, helpful when they could. And I mean, just the kindness and love that we all shared with each other. I mean, you could feel that.
It's real. It's real. All of it's real. More to come. Don't walk away now. In fact, now's the perfect time to subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. I don't usually grub for subscribers, but I'm doing it right now. And I also want to mention one thing that Smythe probably doesn't want me to mention, but I'm mentioning it anyway. After the final episode aired, America had been clamoring to help, to contribute in some way to a service dog for Smythe's daughter. Her needs are specialized to the extent that it's not any old service dog that would do. The amount of training and supplies and equipment and habitation, all of the things that are necessary are quite expensive. And we talked about this all the way back before we even applied for the show, and we were talking about it, that she was going to get the greatest service dog ever when we won. And I think she's still getting it. The fundraiser is not even 2 days old yet, and we were already more than halfway. We just passed halfway to the goal as of this recording, and I think we're going to get to the goal. Every one of you who's contributed or shared the thing or will contribute or will share it, thank you so much. And if you don't have the funds to give, I completely understand that. I completely understand wanting to give but not having what it would take to give. If you can share the fundraiser, that's just as good as giving. I appreciate the crap out of it. It has been so crazy, and now I really am going to need the tissues.
I have a hard time even talking about this because of how touching it is. I just get super emotional knowing how everyone right away just was trying to figure out a way to help my daughter if we weren't to win, and I'm blown away.
Here's something about that you may or may not know about Smythe. You might have figured this out or not. Smythe is a giver. And I mean this, I'm being genuine. This is like the first time I've been genuine this whole video. No, just kidding. But Smythe is a giver. He loves to give. He loves to be there for people. It's not as easy for Smythe to be a receiver. He prefers to be the one helping others. And I knew that when America started responding to the story of what we would have done if we had the money, I knew that Smythe wasn't going to create the fundraiser himself. It's not that he doesn't want it or doesn't appreciate it. It's just that it feels awkward to him, and I'm sorry I'm putting you on the spot. So I took charge, and I was like, I don't care. I'm doing this. I know, there's a lot of ways to define success. In this, the most obvious success is winning and getting the $1 million. And if we had won and got the $1 million, Smythe would have bought a service dog for his daughter, and that's it. But now, every time someone has donated to this campaign, that is more success. I looked at it a few hours ago, and like 700 some odd people had contributed. That's 700 successes because 700 some odd people had the ability to contribute, and that does something for you. When you're able to generously help, I don't know. I'm rambling, and I think I know what you mean. I think you know what I mean. But there are a ton of successes that have come from this experience that were not the win. Not the most obvious one. And I'm eternally grateful that we got the chance to do this. Smythe, if given the chance, would you do the Amazing Race again?
I would 100% do the Amazing Race again. I would love to go back to compete again. I feel like we've learned a few things, and we can improve on a few things. Mm-hmm. And it would be a fantastic opportunity to go back and try again.
I would do the Amazing Race again if given a chance. And I mean this genuinely because I've thought about this. Somebody posed this question to me. I don't know how they came up with this, but I've thought about it. I would do the Amazing Race again even if the winner got nothing. Even if there was no prize on the line. I would also do it if they increased the prize to like 10 million. I don't know. But no, point is, the experience is the prize. We didn't get eliminated. We made it through the whole thing. We got the entire experience. That is the prize that us and Corey and Rob won. It's awesome. So before we make this video an hour longer, let's just cut it off because we'll make you another video, and we have a lot of cool things planned. So I think I started saying that like 10 minutes ago. Subscribe now, and stick around for the awesome stuff that we have coming your way. Our chapter has ended, but the story is still being written.
It's only just begun.
This guy. I slowed down because I thought maybe he'd say it in unison with me. I thought he'd say.
I'm sorry.
Instead, he's like, "Oh, I'm going to sing a stupid song." The chapter has ended, but our story is still being written. This guy sucks. Goodbye.